Reflections of the Immortal Self by Randy Keith, Chapter 1. What does it mean to be an infinite being? And what/who is a universal creation? The infinite state of one's being is that of formlessness. One in the infinite state is not an entity, however, possesses all knowledge and all power. This is the ultimate creator state. And you are able to reside inside and outside of a creation simultaneously. You project self into the creation through subdivision of self, embodying self within all creations, therefore becoming all universal personifications. Of course, this means you are not a product of creation, for in the infinite state you are without beginning or end. Therefore, the creation is an extension of self, or rather, a mirroring of self. Within the creation of frequency, or a universal construct that is made up of frequency, the being manifests as energetic, vibrational, and conscious. Einstein said, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. The being manifests as energetic, but the being isn't energy. It only manifests as energetically as a way for the being to be self-aware within a creation. Again, the mirroring effect. The being's source of power is that they are the source and transcendent of its creation. Some have come to call this source energy, although source energy is not independent of the being. Rather, it is a byproduct of the being's self-awareness or essence, by which it mirrors itself within a creation, and therefore the source and the being are one and the same, as one would cast a shadow. One can choose to use names such as source, or you can call it creational energy, spiritual energy, the isness. You can even use the word God. It doesn't really matter. Names are only as relevant as the intent behind them. In other words, the name is relevant only to the image that is projected within a creation with its intention of being perceived by others in a certain manner. It has meaning only so to describe the manifestation from a particular perspective and or perspectives. How a universal construct manifests. How a universal construct manifests is through separate roles being orchestrated within collective intention. This therefore contributing to its expansion/continuation. Example, let's say we have a being playing the role of universal creator. This being functions as an architect of sorts. So let's call a universe a chief designer's dream. And this being creates a template, a program of sorts, for form, manifestation, development, and expression. That is to say, basic coded system, so to write code, that is to say, create and manifest form in a construct, i.e., universe. The co-creators contribute by manifesting form and embodying those forms, therefore expanding the creation. The contributors are one in the same. In other words, the contributors are one in equality and void of hierarchy with singleness of identity. yet unified and inseparable, varying only in degree of attributes. The endeavor is one of an ongoing collective act in order to perpetuate creation. Now, I'm not saying that the universe is a vast array of computer programs, but the concept here of separation of the programmer and the program creates a proper analogy, I do believe. That again to say, the creator being able to be inside and outside of its creation program simultaneously. So, are we an infinite spiritual being? Are we an infinite spiritual being? Yes, we are. This applies to everybody that's listening to this. And we embody all creations. For some, that may seem to be blasphemy, but this is the real truth. The infinite spiritual being becomes the very thing it believes once or believes it should be. So then, who are we as an infinite spiritual being? Well, again, in our infinite state, we are a formless non-entity, all-knowledgeable and all-powerful being. We immerse aspects of self through bilocation or subdivision of self, which has come to be called incarnations or soul manifestations. One needs only to simply reflect within one's conscious awareness to know it's without measure. We have no limits, but we certainly do create limitations. Limitations are created for the purpose of an intimate experience in order to see self differently. And in doing this, it perpetuates our experiences, that is to say, our creations. This being orchestrated now within our infinite state of being. That is to say, our all knowledgeable and all powerful state. In other words, from the infinite aspect of life, do we arrange our experiences? So when immersing one's infinite aspect of self within another being's reality construct, universe, there are agreements made with that universe's architect / creator in order to carry out those desired experiences within the chief designer's dream. This immersion is known as being a co-creator. This is an effort shared collectively among the multitude of spiritual beings desiring to experience self differently. And because our experiences are collectively shared, further agreements or contracts are made and lived out through the multitude of our incarnations known as soul agreements. Every construct or universe is unique in its design and is a work of art that reflects its creator's intent. We are all creators. We are all creators of what is called universes. And this is what I mean by perpetuating creation. Quote, we serve one another through co-creation and universal creation at the same time. For we all are universal creators whom play all roles in its development. As we expand, so does our creation, for it is one in the same. This is why we are all equal, and there is none better than another. Hierarchies becomes part of the process of roles played in order to perpetuate creation, although, due to the addictive aspect of the role playing, personas fueled by ego, if held too long, tend to get lost in that identity. This is what I mean by saying the infinite spiritual being becomes the very thing it believes once or believes that it should be. To remember true self is to know that you only occupy form to experience self differently. You embody the form, but at the same time, you know it's a role that you're playing. Unless you have been disconnected from your pre-existent incarnations. A problem occurs when the being has been in a particular identity for so long, they indirectly veil themselves from the role and therefore have no recall of the role they're playing. Or they have decided to become the role and fully embody that identity, or their free will has been violated and they have been made to forget their true identity. An example of getting caught up in an identity would be with so-called God deities or gods of religion, or the big G, okay? Because we're talking about ego here, folks, and all these beings are associated with that very thing. Where the ego becomes the driving force and the beings impose their will with subordinate dominance, commanding other beings to conform to their ideal behavior of servitude with the command of worshiping them as the creator of all things. Now, this absurdity is the result of egoic insanity, which requires a complete book unto itself. Within the pre-planned arrangements made prior to soul experience, the experience can be subtle or it can be extreme. After all, in this context, we're talking about experiences that are confined to the design template of any given reality. In other words, it will turn out as planned, but it may take eons and eons of time with great challenges, because in this situation, we're talking about participating in a universe of contrasting realities. That is to say, the polar opposites. This is a universe of polar opposites, which has been about, well, we've been experiencing self quite differently through this particular design. And this is what we collectively agreed upon. But this process of this duality and what has resulted because of it has gone way, way too far, and it has affected the free will of so many different beings and their experiences that this process requires change, and it is now beginning to be changed. Now, the key I find here is always rely on your heart in order to transcend the role that you have been and are playing. This brings you back into balance with your true self and allows for discernment, inner peace, and the deep connection to the love that you have always been. The love that you have always been is what transcends all things. True love, again, true love is true self. Within this universe of contrasting realities, true self is the great neutralizer. So, what is a creation? Well, think of a beginning of a creation or the origin as a dream state, for this would be an accurate representation. That is to say, a dreamy or an illusionary form appearing and disappearing through one's imaginings and intent. As energy is given to this intention, it becomes denser or a more concentrated sense of reality. A growing manifestation of coarse matter, if you will. The multi-layers or dimensions found within the density of a creation are varying degrees of its development, or rather, the creational energetic expanse of self-awareness within its creation, that is, the creator's creation, viewing oneself, reflecting a multitude of images of the intimate observation of one's self-projection. Everything begins within, my friends. Everything begins within. A density, therefore, being a shared conscious awareness or reality. So, yes, we are the creators and the creation simultaneously. Okay, in order to perpetuate a creation / universe, there must be an ongoing, incessant focus. Okay, so for this reason, the being literally becomes its creation, for it is inside and outside of its creation simultaneously. If one were to measure the process according to certain perception of what we have come to call time, it would be somewhat equivalent to hundreds of trillions of years. Some things within creation can happen quickly, whereas the creation itself as a whole takes a great amount of energy and ongoing effort to maintain. This being one of the reasons that it is a collective effort, and time itself is the outcome of the creation's expanse, and therefore allowing for the intended experience of limited perception, so to experience self differently. That is to say, intimately, microscopically, creating within the illusion, that is to say, the creation, the illusion of separation through vicarious experiences. It's all about perpetuating creation. Consciousness within a creation. Consciousness within a creation is a reflection of the infinite aspect of self. Consciousness is but a mirror for self-awareness within a universe. Consciousness is not what you are. It is viewing self through created images or manifestations for the soul, or which for the soul, SOLE or SOUL, purpose of seeing self differently. Again, this aspect is an integral part of perpetuating creation as a whole. Consciousness being a reflection of self within a creation by the projection of one's inner imaginary self. Interest is how it begins, and interest is how it is maintained. The creation now is an extension of its creators. The infinite spiritual being now is embodied in its creation. It has expanded itself by the projecting of itself into the very thing it's creating. Again, I say creating because creation is an ongoing process, and it must be ongoing for it to continue to exist. Again, there must be an ongoing focus of the uttermost detail in order for enough creational energy to flow into to maintain the creation as a reality. So how is it maintained? The simple answer really is interest or obsession. That is to say, an obsessive need for it to be, or a passionate desire for it to exist. Again, it is a collective effort that perpetuates a creation. Again, seeing self differently allows for interest to be maintained. The intended experience of limited perceptions of self to experience self differently, that is to say, creating the illusion of separation through vicarious or various vicarious experiences. What is the process of creational energy feeding continually into a creation? Intention. In simple terms, it's through intention. Interest is maintained basically through drama of pretending. That is to say, acting with the purpose of creating contrast within the creation to maintain interest through the limitless possibilities of experiencing self differently. So, what is this infinite being? Again, the infinite being becomes the very thing that it believes it is, wants, or believes that it should be. This allows for a great many variations within the construct of creative expression. In other words, this is what allows for a creation to be, that is to say, how it comes into being and how it expands as a reality. We are able to hide within our creation, producing the greatest sense of intimate realization. This certainly deepens the expression of living the dream. Not only are we the dream makers, but we are also the dream. I would like to take this time out to show my appreciation to those of you that support this channel and shows like Sovereign Hand Presents. Now, if you would like to show financial support as well, I'll provide a link to my website in the description box below. Presently, I have my music available for purchase there. In the near future, I'll have books, booklets, as well as other items available. Anything that you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.